This show is a production of the Best in Tabletop Network. Be your best in every aspect of your game. Find us wherever you find your podcasts, or check us out on YouTube for more Bat Reps podcasts and shows. If you like what we're doing, you can join our Discord through the Best in Tabletop Patreon group or our YouTube members only area, where you'll get access to our entire library of content. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to Best in Faction,
the next generation,
a podcast where we talk about our Nephilim games. I don't know. I just realized I had to do both Tyler's bit and my own, so I didn't really have a joke. Not that they're very funny anyway, usually.
Yeah, they usually are.
I'm Lucas.
I'm Nick.
And this is our show. I think this is our second show post Nephilim changes. And we do not have a Tyler today. So Tyler is off. He's playing at one of his first teams tournaments, which is really exciting. I'm sure sometime next week we can go over a tournament recap of that. I think it's going to be really fun. Team tournaments are really cool. We don't have very many of them in the Pacific Northwest or in general on the West Coast.
Not at all, really.
Yeah, we try to jump on every opportunity to go to those. He's in one right now in Sacramento, which is a little too far for me and Nick to go to. But we're very excited to talk with him about that because team tournaments are awesome. They're a great way to play the game. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of cool talking points from that. But Nick, we are here together to talk about some Nephilim games, what we're thinking for our factions after so much change in the last couple of weeks. How you feeling? How you been doing in this last week?
Good. I mean, finally feeling much better after we both recovering from COVID. That was a bummer. So yeah, finally feel much better. Planning a lot of games with people. I think I got like 2 or 3 planned next week, which is exciting. So I'm just looking forward to trying stuff out. I know you've been playing some games too, and I've been enjoying watching and hearing about those. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, I've been playing a fair few games. Most of them against Max because I just haven't played against Max a lot recently because I've been busy with work. But yeah, we played. He's been on a guard hype train lately, so I've played Chaos Knights versus Guard and got to experience the full glory of the Relic of Loscadia. And by full glory, I mean me pulling my hair out and him laughing at me and re-rolling everything. So that was fun. That was a cool game. And then we also played Guard versus Orks. And in that matchup, I really felt the impact of army-wide 5-up invuln for free on one turn and the +1 strength to help wound guardsmen on 2s. Just made everything super efficient at picking up guard and setting the tempo in my favor. But we'll talk a little bit more about our Nephilim games in just a minute. But yeah, I've been playing some of those. Today I got 2 games actually. I'm playing against Max's Grey Knights. It's going to be cool to run it up against that post Nephilim. And then also I'm playing Chaos Knights into Death Guard. It'll be cool to have for once in my life. This will probably be the first match in years, probably since I played shock attack guns and or Sons and Guns, that I've actually had a shooting advantage in a matchup. So I'm excited to stay as far away from him as possible and use the 17-inch stick and make him very sad.
Interesting.
That's the plan.
When are you playing against Max?
At 1 o'clock.
Okay. And then Ryan's coming over later this evening.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man.
That sounds like fun.
I'm trying to split my games kind of evenly between Orks and Chaos Knights right now because I'm very excited about both of them. Obviously, Orks are my main faction, so seeing them get huge buffs means I'm very excited to play a lot of games with them. But I also just bought a bunch of Chaos Knights, and I'm excited about them as well. They're really fun. They're really aggressive. they set the tempo in your favor, and that's exactly the kind of army I want to play.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So I feel like we didn't really set an agenda. We didn't really talk about what we wanted to talk about today. So I feel like we could just hang out and talk about our first couple of experiences with the Nephilim packet, talk about our armies, the changes we're considering for. We got a couple tournaments coming up. We got some RTTs and GTs in late July and early August. So I figure we can go over a couple list change ideas that we've come up with and kind of run them through the ringer of, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? How could this impact our local meta? And go from there. So, talk to us about Necrons, Nick. Your first couple games were with kind of your standard list with the King, kind of cold command barge, spamming out Scorpex, and then just like peripheral elements like Wraiths and or Ophidians to run interference and do some skirmishing damage. How are you liking that list? And for the parts of it you don't like, how are you considering list changes to shore those up?
Sorry, I just disconnected a little there. That was weird. I just came in at the end of that thought. You're asking about like changes to my Necron list.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the initial draft that I made for Necrons was very melee heavy. I'm a big fan of Scorpex. Um, and then whatchamacallit? My old list had a lot of Scorpex and Wraiths. I was worried about Wraith's punching ability in the current meta because like their weapon skill 4 and they are whatchamacallit? There's AP2, which isn't really that great in Armor Contempt, but so I've been tearing out Ophidians. Like they're a little bit worse than Scorpex, like Strength 4T4, 4 up armor. But they move 12 instead of 10, which is nice. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me, and we'll go over this game, was watching. I watched a game the other day where you played Emperor's Children into orks, and that made me realize that I definitely need some sort of shooting element. Necrons have a lot of strong melee options, but they also have some good gun options, so it seems silly to like not lean into those, especially against armies that are going to have better control over the fight phase. My only tool like with control over the fight phase is a fight last, which is very strong, but it's an engagement range fight last, and it's easy for my opponent to play around offensively. So it's not a defensive fight last; it's an offensive fight last. So I really get like one good use out of it per game, and I can't really like go up against something that like maybe has multiple fight lasts or like has fight on death or like just better fight phase control and fight phase activation. So I'm debating what type of gun to bring into my Necron list. And I know that there's like what stands out first is like Locust Destroyers. Um Locust Destroyers, they got a pretty okay gun, 24-inch range, 6-3 D3 damage, 3 shots. And they dropped to 40 points a model recently. Um I don't know. Defensively, they're a Scorpec, D5, 3 wounds, 3 up armor, infantry. And so, you usually expect them to go in, do some damage, and then your opponent can decide to kill them or not. Heavy destroyers, they're pretty good, 50 points a model. They're really like one shot at, 10, 4, 3D3. So it's okay. That's not like amazing into Marines, just like 3 really crazy shots. It's like, oh man, you really obliterated like 2 noise Marines, like, 2 sanguinary guard. There's something I thought was crazy. I know people were talking about like, oh, doom sites of core, and I'm like, how are you gonna keep doom sites like nearby the king? Like that's ridiculous. Like they're planes, the king moves 10, like maybe turn 1, but I guess that's all you really need. I know I watched that game recently on Art of War with Siegler versus Jack, and he was running 2 doom sites, and like he put my will be done on them, and then like blew them up like with the king, and they had to reroll everything. And it's like, all right, this is actually pretty good. So as much as I hate to say it, I might actually be considering 2 doom sites, which is just like very silly because I really dislike how easy those things are to kill. But like it might be enough into matchups that don't have a lot of gun, and a lot of like chaos lists that I'm seeing right now, and like orc lists, like don't really have a lot of gun. And those are two like melee matchups that I'm concerned about. Or I guess even Blood Angels, right? Like Blood Angels have like 0 gun. I guess they got Angelus bolt guns, but it's like, okay, good luck shooting my Doom Sights on the other side of the board. Like, yeah, you can go run up and punch them, but that's like they'll already have done something. So I'm definitely going to test that out. I don't know. What do you think about that? What do you talk me into or talk me out of these flyers? What what's the
I'm
idea here? What's the debate here?
man, I'm always biased, Nick. You know I'm gonna argue not in favor of the Flyers because I hate those freaking things.
Yeah, at least you got Storm
But
Boys now to tear them down. Like they
that's true.
will obliterate.
They will do a lot
Now
of
that you're
damage to the
strength
Doom Scythe.
6, unless
Mhm.
you're winning me on 4s.
I think the Doom Scythes fill it's tough because against the wrong lists, they'll feel horrible and you'll wish you had more locusts, right? And
Or
I feel
Locust
like
Heavies
into the
even.
right lists, it'll feel amazing.
Yeah.
Like if you're convinced that someone who can charge your Doom Scythes is going to do so regardless of wherever you place them on the board because they're just that fast, you can just use them to move block. Like against me, they'll be a great tool to move block my wagons. If I'm going to get to them either way, just stick them right in front and slow me down for a turn.
Mhm.
So there's some utility in that. They obviously have some pretty good gun, and they're pretty good at cracking big, tough targets with shooting. It seems like Necrons have kind of when you boil it down, kind of three shooting profiles. There's like the warrior shooting profile, which is good against light infantry at close range. There's the Locust profile, which is good against medium infantry at longer ranges, and then there's all these like larger -4, -5, D3 +3, or 3D3 damage shots. Like I'm thinking the Doom Scythe and the Locust Heavy Destroyer.
Yeah. Those ones are
And
a long range, yeah.
those actually fill a pretty important role with the Necron. And I also count the King's Menhirs. The King's Menhirs are now very reliable. Or
Mhm.
not very reliable, but more reliable than they were now that they get rerolls and can negate a forest by giving himself my will be done.
Mhm.
I feel like there's three shooting profiles, and the one you need most right now is like vehicle cracking capability. I feel like knights might be challenging if they just stay away from you, play the periphery, and shoot in on you. Might be pretty scary. And there's obviously some other people out there in the meta spamming a lot of vehicles, spamming a lot of tough monsters. And at the end of the day, those kind of big, nasty shots are still decent at just, picking up one mid-sized Tyranid bug or one Space Marine Terminator or Sanguinary Guard or something like that. Um, I think those guns are going to be very useful. It's just a matter of if it's worth the points, and I think it is. I think it's a. Well, I don't know that it is. I think it's at least it. There's some merit in at least trying it out. The Doom Sights went down in points in Nephilim, didn't they?
Yeah, they're 165 a piece now, I believe.
It's really good for having
Which
four.
yeah, and the 3 Locust Heavies, which is kind of what I'd compare to a Doom Scythe, are 150. Um, so 15 points more, you gain way faster movement, obviously. Uh, you get you have 3 very good shots, so like 12 for D3 +3. And then you have 10 shots at 701 with sixes or triplers. So like and then Locust Heavies, you have 3 shots or squad of 3 shots, at 10 4 3d3. So you're basically like, do you want 10 or 3 really crazy shots, or 3 really crazy shots and some light infantry? Like that gun there is gonna be pretty good at like killing sisters, killing elves. I mean, even like if you use the ignore cover strat for Necrons, like throw both the Doom Sights into one squad of Marines and you'll kill like 3 of them in cover, maybe. I don't know. Not bad.
Yeah, it is not bad.
For a little sidearm. The issue is with planes though, it's like if they do have gun, right? Like planes just get shot turn 1 because you can't hide them. So I don't love that. I'm gonna try it. I mean, Richard's a better player than me and he thinks they're good. So I'm gonna figure it out and see if there's something there.
Yeah, at least give them a shot, and if you feel like they're not worthwhile later on, you can just cut them, right? You-
Yeah. It seems like it's one of those things where it's like making your night matchup weaker in favor of making your like chaos and like sisters and like orc matchup easier.
Yeah,
Just
it's good,
power
it's
armor in
good
general.
against slower armies that tend not to have a ton of shooting, where you can maybe get a turn or two of juice out of them, and even if they die in one turn, it's a lot of investment from your opponent.
Yeah. Something that I think is funny too. You're talking about the move blocking. Necrons have a stratagem to auto explode a vehicle. So I
Also,
absolutely,
kind of stonks on that thing.
yeah, I love the idea of flying a doom scythe up, move blocking my opponent, and then it's like, shoot it, I'll auto explode.
Yeah, Robson
So
did
they,
that to me
yeah. So then they have to either
many a time.
walk 6 inches away from it, which further move blocking, or tank the mini smite. I guess it's very silly.
All right, and then the other thing you were considering was Tomb Blades.
Yeah, yeah. Tomb Blades. I have always said I'm gonna hate the day that Tomb Blades go down because like they're just almost good enough. I think people were even playing them in Knockman a little bit, like squads of 6 to go around and do R&D. Um, so Tomb Blades are like a weird little biker unit. They are the worst Necron model to build, in my opinion. They come in like 42 individual pieces, and they have like a million ball and socket joints. And this is like, back in the day, new models have a nice thing where it's like when you got to put an arm in, right? There's like a little like slot in there, and like you can just kind of like line it up, and it like clicks in place. Old Necron models don't have that. You just like stick the ball and socket, and you're like, all right, I hope that this doesn't look like trash when I finish building it. You have to like quickly pose it all and everything. It's a nightmare. So I built 3 Tomb Blades once and I hated it, and I'm probably gonna have to go build some more because they drop down um quite a bit. They're 20 points a model now. I think they used to be like 25 or something. So 0 upgrades, 20 points a model. Squad of 3 is 60. It moves 14 plus 1 inch move particle 15. Lord's Will 16. They got Fly. They got Obsec. They're just basically you're paying 15 points more than a squad of Scarabs to move 5 inches further and then just blast out and go to an action. That's how I imagine you'll play them. Just blast out, Ancient Machinery, something midboard. Also Treasures of the Aeons. Woo, 6 points. And then you die. And then if you don't die, it's like, all right, cool. Here's this annoying little fast unit that's going to keep doing this. And something that's cool too is like the army wide protocol. If you want to do the army wide protocol being the plus 1 inch move one, you actually pick which directive is active each turn. So you could be like at the start of the battle round, like, okay, these Tomb Blades want to like go action in the middle, and they also need to like shoot something because their shooting's not great, but like I think it's 6 shots a gun on the particle caster, which is like their basic gun. So it's like 18 shots at 18-inch range at like 601. So I don't know if there's like some Kroot nearby, if there's some sisters nearby, I'll throw some shots their way. So you could say, okay, instead of plus 1 inch move, I'm gonna do shoot in action, and then like your 2 blades run up, ancient machinery is in the middle, and also shoot. So that's kind of cool. That's something you could do. Yeah, I think they might be better than Scarabs. It feels like paying 15 points to gain 5 inches of movement is really strong. So yeah, I think I might try at least 2 squads of 3 out.
Do Necrons have any way to action and shoot?
Not normally. Just the sudden storm protocol. Nihilok is the dynasty that has a stratagem for action and shoot, but I believe it is for infantry locked. I will double check. That's another option that people have been considering because it still gives you army wide obsec. And you lose the 6 inch pregame move, which I'm actually a pretty big fan of, especially on that one annoying mission, Recover the Relics, where if you don't have a way to pregame move or forward deploy, you lose out on 1 to 2 CP, which is god awful. So yeah, I really don't want to lose that.
Got a question from the chat. Can you redeploy the flyers in Necrons? I assume by redeploy he means use the 6-inch pregame move. Or do Necrons have other ways to redeploy units?
The only way to redeploy is tied to the Satan Shard of the Deceiver, who gives you Phantasm for free, which is redeploy, up to 3 units in your DZ or throw them in strat reserves for free. However, he's got a 300 point price tag, and I don't know, not that good. It's basically you look at him and you're like, okay, he's a Transcendent Catan, which is 230, but now I'm paying 70 points for a redeploy, and I guess a slightly better melee profile. I don't think it's worth it, especially for running the king. Like if you weren't running the king and you were doing something like 2 or 3 Catan, like hiding behind walls, like maybe you take the deceiver. So yeah, okay. If you can reserve them, yeah, you can't reserve them after knowing you go second. So you basically have to like guess. You give to look at your opponent's army and be like, okay, what like kind of army are they? Like, are they just gonna be able to shoot them down turn one? And then you have to decide, okay, do I just put them on the board and hope I go first, or do I reserve them before knowing who goes first and then just like bring them in as like a beta strike sort of thing?
I think you play that the same way that like Ian was playing Magnus at BAO a couple months ago, where if they have the guns to seriously threaten him on turn one because the rest of your army hides so efficiently, you just put him in strat reserve and
Yeah.
accept that they're not going to be doing anything for the first turn or two.
Yeah,
There's too much
Necrons.
risk associated with maybe going second and getting 250 points stripped from your list for free.
Exactly, especially because like most of the things that can shoot down the Doom Scythes are going to be what the Doom Scythes want to shoot at. So it seems kind of silly to just serve them up for free. You know, if they're like all slow range, like short range guns, you know, you can also like obviously like check the threat ranges of your opponent's guns. Like say if it's like, you know, the Custodes bike, right? Oh, it's 24-inch range on their Salvus launcher, right? You could maybe you're playing corners deployment, maybe you're playing hammer and anvil, and you can like just backline your planes and they can't actually shoot them turn one. And there you go.
Yeah,
So,
or
but
even using them as a bait of like if you want to come in range, you can, but now you're getting Scorpecked in the mouth.
yep. So there's a lot of play there. I know that there was some debate over the 6-inch pregame move in planes. People were arguing you could like go off the board and do that. No, you can't. As far as I know, I've looked into this
Stop.
because I'm like, this sounds like a nightmare. I mean, this sounds really cool if it works, but like, how does it work in the rules? There are new rules about like if you move a plane over like a board edge or off a board edge, like if its movement ends where like a part of the model's off the edge, it goes into strat reserves, but that only works like in the, I think in your movement phase, like the controlling player's movement phase. So then there's the other thing like, oh, okay, but what about when a plane's not able to complete its minimum move? Then it also goes into strat reserves. Yes, but if you look at the minimum move rules, it says in this like model's movement phase, it must make a move, you know, a minimum move that like according to its like data sheet. And the pregame move is happening before the movement phase. So as far as I could tell, I was asking Tyler about this too. As far as I could tell, you're allowed to pregame move this plane 6, but that's all they do. They just kind of shuffle around 6 inches. They don't go into strat reserves or anything. You can't move them off the board. Like you can't even be like, oh, I move them off the board. They go into reserves. Like, no, it's illegal to move them off the board right now. You're not in the movement phase.
It's irrelevant whether or not it goes into reserves or dies because you just cannot. You
Yeah.
can only move off the board with the plane in your movement phase.
Yeah. So until GW releases like an FAQ saying like, surprise, we actually meant for you to be able to like move planes pre-game off the board, I'm pretty sure since you're not in the movement phase, none of those like go into strat reserves apply.
Gotcha.
And also the minimum move characteristic doesn't apply because it's not the plane's movement phase. So that's a little bit of a bummer because it's like having to spend 2 CP pre-game if I want to reserve those Doom Scythes, but I'll just have to test it out. See how good or bad it feels.
Nice. And give us a quick or actually I'll ask you. How are you ready to move on from Necrons? Anything else you want to mention about them?
I don't know. I'm excited to try them. There's a lot of great ideas, like with the command protocol changes, with the core changes, with points drops. There's a lot of options, so it's an exciting time. Again, I don't know. I don't know what's really gonna be good. There's a lot of things that are like borderline good that I want to test, but I'm like, I don't know if this is like good enough to like actually make the cut. So it's interesting. Oh, we got Fred Fortman here.
Yeah, we do.
I like Nihilok with the planes because they get a cover save top of 1, 2-up save if you go second. So are you talking about they get the cover save top of 1 because of the Eternal Guardian protocol, I'm guessing?
Or it isn't the Necron sorry, Nihilak. They swap pregame move for like a cover if you stand still or something, right? If you in your DC.
No, I don't think so. It's just AP1 becomes AP0 in your DZ.
Oh my god, that's even worse than I thought it was.
Yeah, you get OBSEC, and then each time an
No.
attack with an armor penetration characteristic of -1 is allocated to this model, and if model's unit is wholly within controller's DZ, it becomes AP0.
That is a god awful.
So It's like cover against AP1 unless I'm missing something.
Yeah. Well,
But there is the Eternal Guardian protocol, which is it has 2 directives. It has set to defend, hold steady, out in the open, or cover if you didn't move. So you definitely like that is a valid strategy. Like if you're like, I want to put the planes out in the open, and then I'll just like plop down protocol Eternal Guardian turn 1. If I do go second, now they are on a 2-up save. That's something.
Nihilok
Yeah.
is the defensive dynasty, right? They prefer that protocol. Is that right?
Yeah, so they get both.
If
So it's
you
like
were to if you were to choose that as your throughout the whole game directive, do you get both throughout the whole game?
you do. But
That's pretty cool.
you don't get the cover if you move that battle round. So it sucks if you're going first. Because
That's not
yeah,
great.
amazing if you're going second.
But you get to decide which protocol you're having throughout the whole thing at the start of the first turn, right?
No, when you assign your protocols pregame, one that you didn't assign is the one that becomes active for all battle rounds.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you could even think of it as insurance. If you play Nihilok and you assign that throughout the whole game, you can think of that as assurance. Like, if I go second, I'm going to have cover every single turn of the game.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I mean, you could just do that in everyone else though too.
Yeah, but you don't get both directives. What's the other directive for that one?
It's hold steady or set to defend out in the open. So like +1 to
Mhm.
hit when you get charged or
Okay, I
Overwatch on
guess.
5s. Yeah.
All right. I'm liking this a little bit less than
I think the argument for Nihilak is the stratagem, which I don't know if I actually finished reading that earlier. Where is it? Reclaim a lost empire. It's okay. It's good if you're running like Nihilak destroyers. It gives infantry units shooting action. So like your destroyers could go to an objective and scan the objective and keep shooting.
does seem pretty good.
Got a
And
question.
then Nick asks, with Krons, are you afraid of really aggressive archetypes that put pressure on you early, a la Blood Angels, Orks?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm afraid of. Like I think that's what Krons have been afraid of since like 8th edition. Krons really like to play, I think, a slower, grindier game. Like they want you to play the game at their pace where they're in control. I mean, I guess every army wants to do that. But like that's how I feel Krons want to play in general. They want you to be chipping at their stuff so they get to like bring their stuff back. They want you to send like 1 unit in a turn or like 2 units in a turn so they can just like rip those units apart. But if you put like, 6 units in front of them, they're gonna be like, okay, I have 1 fights less and like some decent shooting, but like I don't know if I can kill all of this. Yeah, they'll absolutely obliterate like 2 squads that are put in front of them. But put multiple units in front of them and you're guaranteed to either have whole units left alive or like important pieces of those units left alive, and then you get to go punch the crown player. So
Yeah, for those who may not have a really good Necron player in your meta, like the Northwest does with Nick, the Necrons have a lot of cool tricks, and they have actually a lot of powerful melee capability. They have the 1 fight slash, they don't have a lot of fight phase control. But in terms of just sheer damage they can output, it's actually very solid. Like Necrons can do an equivalent amount of damage to like they're similar in terms of the amount of damage they do to some of the premier melee armies in the game. The issue is they don't have any way to extend their threat range past a very defined amount. They have like a Death Guard-esque problem. They move faster than Death Guard, but they have a max like 22-inch range threat on their Scorpex or whatever it is. And their Ophidians have a max threat of 24 or whatever. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's something like that. You can ask your opponent, how fast can you move? And then deploy outside of range or deploy like just barely within so that they have to go for a double 6 charge. Something like that. And the other issue they have is their defense is god awful. Like if you make combat with a squad of like maybe this is just me, I've been very lucky playing Goffs and every unit does a ton of damage. But you can make contact with a squad of Scorpex with kind of just an average melee character and kill like 3 or 4 of them. Or like a squad of dudes can plow into some Ophidians and kill 3 or 4 of them. And any real melee unit or shooting unit can just pick up a whole squad if you draw a bead on it and get a clean engagement. You can really take advantage of the Necron players not durability, and aggressive archetypes do that really well because they put the pressure on early and they kill a lot of models very fast. And I feel like that is one of Necron's big shortcomings is if you're not very careful with your models, you can get them all killed in a big hurry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think their durable units are like Wraiths and Lichguard, where you can give them a 4-up invul, which is very strong. Um, so I just find that like actual melee units still do just delete you, right? Like a squad of 4 or 5 Wraiths it's 15 T5 wounds on a 4-up, or like 12 T5 wounds on a 4-up. It's not bad. But I feel like just weight of attacks is gonna like murder them enough.
Yeah.
Or even like Lichguard or Vanguard vets. They're 2-up, 4-up. And as we've seen, like, Vanguard vets can sometimes like they'll give like a squad of dudes some trouble, but not like a real squad. So I guess maybe the argument there is like you just run a lot of like MSU. So I don't know. Like I said, there's options. There's options. Like you could like run min squads of Lichguard with Sword and Board. That might be something out there that's good. Just needs testing. So
Brett asks before we move on from Necrons, do you think Crons can put the king up front against Blood Angels, and if anything, Forlorn Furies into your lines, the king can fight last? It didn't kill.
so maybe. I think this would be tough to pull off. The Silent King's fight last is at the start of the fight phase, it checks all enemy models in engagement range of his model, and then it makes them fight last. It doesn't come from the Menhirs, so you have to be very careful if you want to do something like this. If you make the Menhirs chargeable, I'm pretty sure the Death Company guy would just Forlorn Fury into the Menhirs and like slam the king for 15 damage. The king can heroic as well as the Menhirs, so like he has a pretty big heroic threat range, which is nice because it's like a whole unit's a character unit, so it can heroic from any model in the unit. You could probably like maybe if you screened out the Menhirs, like put some stuff around them, and then put the king up front. Like you could at least make an area that you don't want them to go to. Like no, you can't charge here, and then they might go charge elsewhere. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm interested in seeing. I need some practice into Blood Angels to see what are they going to go Forlorn Fury and how can I mitigate that.
Yeah, that should be a practice game we play sometime in the next few weeks. I think that'd be pretty
Definitely.
good.
But I would be very cautious about where your Menhirs are, because if they charge the Menhirs, not getting fight lasted, and they're gonna slam him in the face.
The king is big, and his 3-inch heroic is nice. But the thing you have to remember about Forlorn Fury is it's a movement of 12, and because of the Wrath of Baal in the next movement phase, those guys are moving another 14. So unless I'm missing something and I've misunderstood how fast Blood Angels move, they're starting their charge phase 2 inches into your DZ. So if he wants to, he can really get a charge on anything you deploy remotely aggressively. And so he can just move away from the king and just not charge anywhere near the king and Thunderdome 2 units of Scorpex instead. And then that's why this is so scary. Is Blood Angels have an amazing turn 1 charge, and Necrons, they have to, it's a big risk for them to deploy a unit on the line because half the time that unit just gets killed by a unit of Death Company.
Yeah. The nice thing at least is if they want to do the pregame move going first, I get to do my pregame move next because you have to resolve pre-battle abilities going back and forth with the first player. So I at least can see the direction they're Forlorn Furying in and like move stuff away from that as best as I can. The only one who can't pregame move obviously is the king because he's not custom dynasty. He is Zerikin, but like I could like bait like something over here and then be like, oh, now it's coming over this way. No, just an idea.
Nice.
So,
all right, that was some awesome Necron talk, man. That was fun.
Yeah. If more stuff comes up, we'll definitely talk about it.
Yeah, they seem like they're in a powerful spot. We all have been talking about how amazing their scoring options are. People are talking less about how much melee damage they do, but that's still very incredible. And now they have some decent shooting options as well, now that the king is core, and maybe you can consider some flyers as well. So I feel like Necrons are in a solid spot. They have some weaknesses. They have a lot of strengths. And I'm curious to see how they progress and play out in our meta. It's going to be cool to see a new faction kind of rise up as something that could be very competitively viable.
Yeah, I'm excited. But yeah, orcs.
Is it time for the Great Green, baby?
I know, yeah. Well, maybe we'll touch on some Chaos Knights, but I mentioned earlier that there was an orc game I watched the other night. Was it Wednesday night?
It was Thursday night.
Thursday night, where you
Yep.
played Orcs v CSM. I know you've been practicing a lot of games. So let's hear about I guess the first thing I want to hear is you've played 3 games now with New Orcs? Or 2 games?
I think it's 2 games. I
Just
played
2.
against Guard and I've played against Emperor's Children.
You got another one playing today. I guess so what out of those games, like, what has been your initial response or initial reaction to the orc changes that you got in the latest status list?
Yeah, obviously things are looking up for the boys in green. Getting +1 strength and getting a 5-up invuln on the log turn is incredible, in addition to points changes. The question is, how does all that slot in and amongst the new meta, right? Because a lot of the armies that were dominating previously took some serious hits. Tau and Tyranids and Eldar are all still very viable and very strong, but they took a lot of hits, and the lists that we used to see aren't going to look very much like the list that we're seeing, or sorry, the list that we saw like a month ago aren't going to look like the lists that are going to be tearing up tournaments now, or at least I don't think so, especially with regards to like, actually, I don't even know what Eldar are going to do, but Tyranid players are probably going to try some new stuff. Their lists, at the very least, will look a lot more slim because they lost 400 points. Isn't that ridiculous, by the way? How a lot of those like mid-tier bugs, like the 3, 4, 5 wound bugs spam lists, lost 400 points and are still competitively viable. That's funny.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Tau. Tau crisis suits going up is amazing for the wagon lists. It lets me very seriously consider not taking the Big Mech, which is the big reason I took that guy in the past, was to on the go turn against Tau, or the go turn being the put everything in the middle turn, I get to turn on a 5-up invul. So that guy is now might be getting cut, and the reason is because Tau took such big hits. So the question is, what is the meta actually going to look like in the next couple of weeks and months? I don't know. So I don't know what units are going to be good. I'm just thinking, what am I going to be running up into? And I feel like I'm going to be running into a lot of knights. Knights are obviously really powerful now. They have awesome scoring options. Their damage was always really good. So I need to find efficient ways to kill knights that a knight player would be like, oh, okay, like I lost an armager to that. And I feel like orcs have a lot of good ways to do that. I don't want to spend a whole character killing an armager unless I have to. I don't want to spend a whole unit of meganobs killing an armager unless I have to.
Yep.
Beast Snagga Boys. Goff Beast Snagga Boys are a really cool tool. They're strength 7 during the WOG. They got +1 to hit against vehicles. That in combination with like Gazgul rerolls means you basically kill an armager 100%, like 80 to 100% of the time, unless they invest some serious stratagems in keeping it alive. I'm thinking like if it has like a feel no pain somehow, or the Imperium guys can give them +1 armor save. So Beast Snaggas are awesome. They're also OBSEC. Strength 7 matters into other things, like now they wound Tyrant Guard on 3, so they can kill a unit of Tyrant Guard pretty good. Other toughness 7 and 6 things, now they're +1 wound. Like against a light vehicle, they've gone from like doing a lot of damage to a Wave Serpent to absolutely punking it. They can kill a Chimera, they can kill a Wave Serpent, they can kill like 2 Raiders in one go. So these guys are amazing against light vehicles.
Rhinos are
Rhinos,
T-zone.
pretty good against Rhinos. Yep. And
Any Dread Knights running around.
they've
RIP those
also,
guys.
on the go turns, they've got a 5-up invuln now. So the general theory and what I've been changing around in my list is, rather than leading with the wagons and making long charges with Meganobs, I'm leading with squads of Beast Snagga Boys and Storm Boys who have a 5-up invuln. So if I cram 40 of those guys in my opponent's face, now they have to deal with, because of the knob, 44 toughness 5-up invuln wounds, all of which slaps in melee and half of which is OBSEC. And then even if they deal with that, there are now 3 wagons right behind because I wogged on the first turn or whatever. There are 3 wagons behind that have a 5-up invuln, and they're really hard to kill. And if you don't deal with them, Now 15 Mega Knobs are going to come in and do the real damage. So that's kind of the archetype I'm going for. It's still consistent with the old Goff thing I was doing in the last 3 months of the Mega Knobs do a ton of damage in conjunction with Gazkul. I'm just kind of pivoting around what support units I want, what periphery units I want. I think pigs are really good. I think pigs are not as good in a world where Armor of Contempt is really prevalent. And I feel like that is the world we live in now. If we think about all the armies that are going to be very powerful, a lot of them are Armor of Contempt armies. Sisters. I'm in the Northwest. I'm really worried about T-Suns and Grey Knights because we see a ton of those. Blood Angels are obviously terrifying. Other Marine armies could pose us some issues. There's just a lot of armor. CSM.
New CSM.
We're going to be so
We got to
hot.
talk about those noise marines.
A Beast Snaga army, I don't think has any chance against CSM. I'm going to be honest, especially if it's not Goffs. Like, you're just going to wet noodle them and they're going to run you over.
Would it like, Beast Snaga army like being like bunch of Beast Snaga boys, bunch of pigs, bunch of kill rigs?
Yeah, the kill rig. The kill rig is the big culprit because it's just a wagon that's more expensive that carries a unit that hits less hard in Armor of Contempt.
Yeah,
I don't want to pay a 60-point premium to be less effective into the meta. That's not a value proposition I'm interested in. Nick says bad. I agree.
If kill rigs could transport anything other than like Beast Snaga boys, do you think they might be okay? Like if they could transport Mega Knobs.
If they just
be like nope
Snagger restriction, I would consider it. Having just Mega Knobs in a transport is always scary because losing 1 or 2 guys to random ones feels horrible. But yeah, I would consider it. But at the end of the day, I'd probably still go with the wagon.
But they don't do that. So go with the wagons is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Stop playing killer rigs. Sorry, they're cool. Go play them in Crusade. I have a ton of fun playing mine in Crusade.
They're good. If you're playing in your local meta and your army has no space, in your local meta has no Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines, go hog wild. No pun intended. But you're not gonna kill any Marines. Let's see. Nick says the rig problem is quite long. It gives up Assassinate and bring it down. Yeah, giving up Assassinate very reliably is scary for orcs. Our characters are one of our biggest strengths. And you want to make the assassination like game theory for your opponent very challenging. If you tell them you have 3 or 4 characters that like playing really aggressively, and they say, yeah, if I focus down these characters, I'm going to get a 10 or a 13 on assassinate. That's not amazing, but maybe I'll take it. As opposed to kill rig lists where it's like, yeah, I give up 18 on assassinate. You take this 100% of the time. I don't like the value. I don't like the look of that. Denies taking Abhor against T-Suns and Grey Knights, which are, now that they have Armor of Contempt, somewhat challenging matchups. You really want to take Abhor the Witch in both of those. And then only AP2 in close combat. Yeah, that's not great either. I mean, you can make the same case about the wagon, but the point of the wagon is to deliver a quality unit, not do damage itself. The kill rig, part of its value is that it does damage, and when it just half of that damage is turned off because of Armor of Contempt, I don't like it as much. The advance and charge is really nice. The psychic is nice. The shooting is nice. But if you've played kill rigs for any amount of time, you don't rely on any of that psychic or shooting damage. Or at least that's what I kind of realized when I was playing them around LVO, is it's nice when it happens, but you never rely on it. So yeah, rigs are a good unit. They are completely viable, but they are, in my opinion, strictly worse than battle wagons because of the rest of the meta right now. Yeah, let's see. The wagon is so cheap in comparison. I agree. And then Fred says it's hard to score secondaries now. I think it's going to be important to deny easy secondaries to your opponent, no assassinate, and try to avoid no prisoners. I agree. I think that let's see. Let me do a quick bit of mental math. 54.
Yeah, I can talk about the no prisoners thing too.
I think my new list gives up 99 no prisoners wounds, which is an amazing place to be.
It's very funny.
Oh no, I have commandos as well. Okay, I give up like 13 points. Darn. But yeah, if you can make your opponent really think about taking assassinate or no prisoners instead of just automatically locking it in, you're in a good spot. And I feel like the rig lists don't do that at all. You just take assassinate and get a 15 on it.
Yeah, not to detract too much from the orc thing, but this is a good point that Fred brings up about avoiding assassinate, as you guys are talking about with like the rigs and avoiding no prisoners. Necrons like historically give up a lot of no prisoners because all their good units are T5 3 wound, models. That's another thing about like the scarabs versus the tomb blades, right? Scarabs are 12 wounds, tomb blades are 6 for like a squad of 3. So there you go. That's pretty nice. You're not just giving a whole point on no prisoners when they kill your 45 points of scarabs. And I know this is something too about like why I think Siegler was trying like Catan in his list. He's like, yeah, I know that there's less stuff on the board, but I'm trying to give up less no prisoners. And that's, I mean, you might start seeing a lot more of that. And that's another kind of like interesting list choice. I haven't really thought about that yet. I'm kind of like, I don't really want to like shoot my list in the foot just to like deny a secondary. I've always kind of been like, I'm fine giving you no prisoners. It means you have to come over and kill me, and that's exactly where I want you. And also, like, I'd rather just play these units because they give me the best chance to win. So that's going to be a choice you're going to have to make. And I think, I mean, your argument there was the kill rig is not the unit that gives you the best chance to win. So why even try to give up assassinate,
No. Yeah.
So if they were like much stronger, it'd probably be worth it. It'd probably be like, all right, yeah, I do give up assassinate, but these things are crazy,
Yeah.
And it's just a choice you're going to have to make when designing lists right now because some people are going to be scrambling for that third secondary. And if your list gives it up, like, that's not great.
Yeah. I was seeing something about here, let's on the topic of secondaries, let's talk about this real quick. Tricky in armies where a lot of damage comes from characters like Harlequins. You need to trade them occasionally so that you can deny other points in other ways where you can. Yeah, I think Harlequins are looking a little bit different now, right? Because they don't have as many CP to juice up their characters, so maybe they have less aggressive ones. But I don't know. Harlequins might not be an army you used to take assassinate when you played aggressively. You used to take assassinate a fair bit into Harlequins because if you run at them, they have to use their characters like solitaires and troop masters to come counterpunch you, and then you can kill those guys for a lot of points. And then if you get at any point like a bead on their Shadow Seer, you can run in and kill that thing for another 3 points, and all of a sudden your assassinate's looking pretty good. Now you're not taking as many characters as Harlequins, so I feel like the assassinate value proposition is a little bit lower.
Yeah,
but yeah, the same. In principle, that stands. Where if your opponent has to use their characters aggressively to get value out of them, taking assassinate is a good way to add another like negative on the mental math for them of if I use this character aggressively, my opponent gets to kill him and then get 3 points. That was when people were taking assassinate a lot against Drukhari back in the day, like whatever that was, 16 months ago when the codex first came out. Drukhari players countered by saying, yeah, my codex is undercosted, so I don't have to use my characters. And then I always countered that by saying, well, what if I run at you and in order to deal with me, you have to now use your characters. And now I'm going to get some points from them. So it's a little bit of back and forth of who's using their characters and who's getting points from them. And if the character player slips up at any point in time, then all of a sudden they're dropping a lot of points. Hopefully that wasn't too rambly. I love these questions, by the way, guys. This is a fun little discussion we're having. I'm having a ton of fun with this.
Yeah.
Let's say, oh, this is a Chaos Knight question. We'll go back to that. But yeah, just to wrap up on orcs really quick. I know I've been harping on them or rambling about them for a while. Yeah, I'm excited about some lists that are gonna see other clans doing well. Blood Axes and Evil Sons, I feel like, are lists that could work in certain metas. I worry about them doing really well at GTs and majors because at some point on the mid to late tables, you're gonna run into a Sisters of Battle army that's piloted super well, or a Blood Angels army that's piloted by like a fight phase veteran, and you're just gonna have a bad time. And that's why I'm sticking with Goffs. And I'm still loading up on the Meganobs and Gaskell.
It's hard to move away from so much damage when you played it for so long.
Yeah,
when
it's a little bit clunky. It takes a little while to get there, but if your opponent doesn't know or isn't familiar with how hard you can blast them in one turn, it is a absolutely lethal list. And especially because a lot of those Armor of Contempt armies like playing aggressively and deal their damage at short range. Having a 16 wound battle wagon protect something that hits so hard is just I can't give it up. It's too good.
So
Last orcs thing.
yeah.
Are you thinking about playing Get the Good Bits at all with the Goffs list? Yep. Depends on the mission, obviously. I've got 10 Gretchen on my list, so that's kind of nice. And I've also got 2 squads of 5 commandos, which are fairly durable now. I mean, they always were. So if they can hide on a midfield objective and I don't have to complete it right away, I'll just sit back there and say, yeah, if you want to throw forward a real unit to kill my 5 commandos so they don't complete this action, go right ahead. I'm going to then kill that unit and just play 3 points down. Or you can let me get my 3 points. Orcs now have some really good defensive secondaries, Get the Good Bits and the Biggest and the Best, which you can play a little bit more defensively and still scrape out really good scores on. So yeah, I am building Get the Good Bits into my list, and I'm excited to take that some more. I kind of like banners more depending on the mission to make people come near me. Yep, it really just depends on the mission and where the objectives are placed.
Have you taken the biggest and the best in either of your test games yet?
Yeah, I took it into max. We played 2 turns and I got a 5 on it both turns.
Oh, we played in the guard. They have
Yep.
probably have a problem dealing with Yaz, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he sent forward a giant wall of move block turn 1, so Gaskell killed 5 guardsmen, consolidated onto an objective. Sorry, he killed 5 guard. I might be. This is my first time playing it, so I could be playing the secondary wrong, and apologies if I was, but I think I did this right. He killed a unit by killing off like 6 guardsmen. That's 2 points. He killed at least 5 models. So that's another 2 points, and he was on a midfield objective, so that's another 2 points. But it caps at 5. So he killed
Yeah.
5 guardsmen, consolidated into the middle, provided his reroll aura to my entire army, and got 5 points. That secondary is bonkers.
It might need to be an objective that you control, but
I absolutely controlled it.
yeah, it's your first time playing it. Oh, you absolutely controlled it? Oh, okay, perfect. There you go. Cool. Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Secondary's good. You got to be careful when your opponent can focus down your warlord really quickly, especially when it's Gaz because he's targetable. But yeah, I played it right. Okay, cool.
So how did you feel about that game into Emperor's Children the other day? Do you want to touch on that at all?
Sure, really quickly. This was me realizing that even when I play Mechanobs and Gazgul, I still sometimes have some issues finishing off Armor of Contempt targets. Like there were 3 or 4 times where I just barely finished off a unit of Chosen or Possessed or Noise Marines with one of my trading units. And that's despite having like Gazgul rerolls and being Goffs. So Noise Marines are the thing that's scary in Emperor's Children specifically. If they have a big Terminator brick, you can stay away from it. You can bait them in and then like isolate them and chomp on that with your entire army because yeah, that unit's tanky, but at the end of the day, if you just force a bunch of wounds on it, it'll start failing some saves. And the Terminators, they do a lot of damage, but at the end of the day, they're not like wiping out your whole army.
So their guns are not that scary. You can give them
Yeah.
Combi Meltas, but you know it's scarier than a Combi Melta.
A Blastmaster.
A Blastmaster.
Yeah, dude. The Noise Marine MSU is really what I'm scared of with my wagons list because I have to play aggressively. So if I go first, I come up into their +1 damage range. They walk forward and just like blast a bunch of strength 8 -3 flat 4 damage on me and kill 2 wagons, which is exactly what happened to the Tanner.
Yeah, for those who are unaware, the Blastmaster is 3 shots at 48 inch range. He's got 2 profiles. This is heavy profile. It's 833. Within 24, it's 4 damage. They also have Blade Artists in range and melee, so 6 is to wound or AP 4. And then since he's engaging in, I don't know, whatever Wonton it is on turn 1, he's got 6 is explode for heavy. So this thing's effectively hitting on 3s, ignoring all hit mods and ballistic skill mods with 6 explode, which is basically +1 to hit. Yeah, that was ludicrous. 1 Blastmaster doing 12 damage to a wagon.
I thought his
oh my
shooting was
God.
going to kill like 1 or 1.5 wagons, and he basically killed all 3 and then killed 10 Gretchen as well. Which was, man, that was some brutal stuff.
So that was interesting to
It's
watch.
encouraging to see that most people's Emperor's Children armies are taking these bigger bricks, like larger squads of Possessed and Terminators, and then like 10 Noise Marines. Because if 10 of those guys want to expose themselves to, you know, shoot their 1 Blastmaster, I'm going to go punch them in the face with 10 Storm Boys and then stay there in combat. The weakness of Noise Marines is they don't shoot on death anymore, and they're good in combat, but they're not amazing. So if you tag them with a unit that has a fair amount of durability, that unit of Noise Marines is going to do nothing for a turn because it can't.
Yeah.
Unless I'm forgetting, I don't think it can fall back and do do
I
anything.
don't think there's fallback and do anything in that book. I could be wrong. There's probably some way to do it, but
Black Legion
there
has a lot
wasn't
of
an Emperor's
but
Children.
not in Emperor's Children.
Yeah. The other thing, they don't ignore cover anymore. The natively AP1, which is
Yep.
worse than armor contempt.
Yep.
But something that I thought was pretty cool that Tanner did was putting power fists on all the sergeants, because like since they ignore hit penalties, might as well be hey, here's my attacks hitting on 3s. I think the icon also gives them +1 to hit, right?
Yep.
They're hitting on 2s, 6s explode, turn 3 onwards.
Yep.
Gives them
Yeah.
a little bit of punch.
They're each 5-man squad they're expensive. I think they're like 27 points a model, and then
28 points a model.
holy cow. Okay, and then you buy
Yeah.
upgrades. So these guys are really expensive, but if your opponent doesn't have ways to efficiently pick off marine, not only models but whole squads, because the thing about that is when you take a bunch of 5-man squads, in each squad there's like a blastmaster who's super important and the sergeant with his power fist. The other 3 guys are basically just fodder. So you have to like churn your way through 3 like guys that are in cover, so they're basically on a 1-up, and they have good leadership, so they're never going to run away. You have to cut through 3 models, and then you have to do more damage to actually affect the amount of output that squad is putting out.
Yep.
It's challenging, especially for melee armies. Maybe shooting armies will have it easier because they can just cut an angle and be like, okay, 2 squads dead, and now I fire and fade, and you're not shooting at me or whatever.
Well, good luck with that. Once per game now.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyway, the proposition for going up against Emperor's Children with a lot of MSU Noise Marines is pretty scary for orcs. That's something I definitely learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the game that made me be like, okay, I'm gonna put some shooting in my
I
own
need
melee
some shooting in
list.
my list. Yeah, I really wish I had. I don't even know what kind of shooting would be good enough in my army. Probably nothing.
Mech guns, dude, bring them back.
Oh my god, stop it. You shoot me with this 48-inch range blastmasters. Like I wouldn't be able to do anything.
Oh.
Anyway.
Wazbomb blasted jets. Let's go, dude.
Stop.
I got 2 right on the shelf
tempt
for
me.
you.
Don't tempt me. I know that's actually good, but I don't want to.
We can both play planes together,
That's
dude.
not a golf model, dude. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Oh, here's the other thing. Okay. I know I've said the last thing about orcs 3 times in a row, and I want to move on to Chaos Knights before we finish out the show. But one more thing about orcs is now you have real ways to kill planes with an all melee army, because Stormboys are super fast, and now they're strength 6 -1. So if you can find a plane that's not, even if the plane is T7 3-up armor with Gazgul rerolls, you can still do a lot of damage. But if the plane is either T6 or as a 4-up armor, or if it's an orc plane in both, you absolutely tear it out of the sky with 10 Stormboys, which is awesome. They can, like against a Doom Scythe, they can probably kill that with Gazgul rerolls. What are some other T6 planes? I can't think of any at the moment.
Planes, Wazbombs.
Yeah. Dark Eldar ones, I think, are T6 3-up armor. You can tear those out of the sky.
Yeah, the Void Raven bombers. Ooh.
Stormboy, and then I have Zagstruck in my list as well. So those 2 in concert can definitely Thunderdome some planes. Which
Zag will punch a plane. He's like strength 9 or 10, right?
Strength 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Watch out.
Unshark bombers. Yeah, T6 4-up armor. I maybe 3-up. Either way.
Yeah,
those guys are
real.
Those guys are real, and they're also very squishy. So if you can get them close to you, you can pounce on them with Stormboys.
Well, cool. Maybe if we got time at the end, I know there is. I think it'd be interesting to talk about Sean Naden's orc list. It's a big thing that he did recently. Is just start playing orcs. He did that at Charity Hammer, and I was like, oh, cool. And then he's playing it at a tournament this weekend, I think, too.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about his list real quick, or do you want to do Chaos Knights and then come back?
Do we have it available?
Yeah, I got it. Someone posted in the Discord. They're actually asking you about it.
Okay.
Might be interesting for you to react to it live.
Sure.
Okay. Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah, go for
it. So Naden is playing Goff list. I guess it's a teams list at Joel Hammer. So the list is 2 knobs on Smash a Squigs, Beast Boss on Squigosaur with Big Killa Boss, Ed Wappa's Kill Choppa, 10 Beast Snagga Boys, 2 squads of 4 Mega Knobs, 2 squads of 3 Squighog Boys with Bomb Squigs, a Battle Wagon with an Ard Case, but no Def Rolla, a Def Dread with Big Krumpas, 2 Claws, and 2 Scorches, and then the second detachment has a Foot Boss with BBK Attack Squig Killa Claw, 10 normal boys, 10 Gretchen, 2 squads of 5 Mandos with power claws, 1 more squad of 3 Squighog boys with a bomb squig, a squad of 5 Storm boys with a choppa on the boss knob, 1 more battle wagon with an Ard case and no Def Rolla, 1 more Def Dread that is Big Krumpa's, 2 Dread Claws, 2 Scorches, and then Gazgul Thraka. It's a very different decision than you. I mean, it's got the similar-ish. It's got a similar-ish core, I guess. I wouldn't really call it. I don't know if it really has a core. The core is like Squighog boys and like 2 squads of 4 Mega Knobs and Gaz, and then it's just got like a bunch of like little trash units and 2 Def Dreads walking around and stuff.
And it's
what's your
Warboss. It's character complex. Does he have Zagstruck?
no Zagstruck? The
Okay,
characters
so
are Foot BBK guy and Squigosaur boss with Big Killer Edwappas.
is he he's not a trucker, right? Because he doesn't have a truck.
No truck boy.
Okay,
Nope,
so
they're
he's
just all
got
walking around
a
the battle
Killer
wagon.
Claw Goth boss.
Yep.
Who slaps, but he moves 5. He's got Gaskell and he's got a Squig boss.
Yep.
Okay.
Big Killer Edwappas.
I like it. It's a little. I mean, I was gonna say it's a little slow, but it has the same speed as my army, other than the fact that it doesn't have any Storm Boys. There are a lot of things I like with the list. I like having a lot of pigs. He has what 4, 4, and 3. That's more than I have.
3x3, yeah.
3 Okay, he has 9. So he has a decent number of pigs to go out and be his initial skirmishing. He doesn't have anything super fast. Things that can really like get to the opponent turn 1 or actually project some threat on in the first turn or 2 are like the 5 Storm Boys and his 2x5 commandos. Terry, it sounds like he actually has 2 squads of 4 Mega Knobs. And they look like they ride in the toughness 8 or the 1 battle wagon he has.
2 wagons.
He has 2?
Yeah, 2 with hard cases. That's
Okay.
it.
No,
Like
no Def Rolls is pretty weird.
They're easier to hide. Maybe that's
maybe
the
a
idea.
typo or something. Oh, that's true. That's actually a real consideration. Yeah. I would still pay the 15 to just make it such a great melee combatant, but either way. Yeah, 2x4 Mega Knobs. I think this list, its strength over mine is that there's a lot more smaller units to go and do things with. He has a lot more like 3-man units, 4-man units that can just run, punch something on a flank, do an action, move block the opponent, screen. I don't have as many of those units. I have like bigger 10-man squads that do a lot of damage and are a little bit clunkier to get there. The issue I see with Sean's list, and I would be happy to be wrong. He's a much better player than me and a better list builder than me, but this is the issue that I see initially anyway, is he's going to have some issues when called upon to do a lot of damage very quickly. Obviously it's Goff, so it still hits. Those 2x4 Mega Knobs, they're going to do some damage. But 8 is nowhere near 15. And he's got some good characters. The BBK Goff does a ton of damage. Gaskell obviously does a ton of damage, and so does that Squig. But other than that, he doesn't have like big units that are. He doesn't have like a big 10-man brick or a big 5-man squad of Mega Knobs or like 4 or 5 pigs that can just go in and hit a unit super hard all in one go. Like how does he kill 8 Sanguinary Guard? I guess the same way I do, just with 1 less Mega Knob in the squad. Like one of the big strengths of orks for me is that your first fight activation is hits like a freight train, right? If you line up all the buffs on 1 unit and you just hit the right unit in your opponent's army, you can control delete a ton of stuff. And having more MSU has its advantages, but one of the disadvantages of that is you can't just run in and punch your opponent super hard on your first activation in the fight phase. So I like it. The Def Dreads are also pretty cool. They can they're another little screening interference unit. My guess is that the 2 of them outflank for 1 command point. So they can run in, they can flame some stuff, and they can make a good charge if they need to.
Are they?
So they're pretty cool.
Oh, they can do that. I didn't realize they were below 10 power level.
I think they're below 10 power level.
No, there's 6 each.
Oh, okay, never mind. So that's a bit of a bummer. Fred says, I'm no orc master, but Sean always likes to have his damage revolve around characters. Yes. And that's where a lot of It's challenging because if your opponent knows that all your damage comes from characters, they can use that to their advantage and either stay away from those characters or use positioning to mitigate them and then just pick on your weaker units. Um, so I like the list. It has different strengths and weaknesses than mine. Um, I wouldn't play it. I'm
Yeah.
just I feel like Sean's list probably is just a little bit slower, a little bit more passive. He can do screening, he can do secondaries better, he can do actions, he can place to his advantages that way. Whereas my list is just much more aggressive, and I've built the list with that in mind.
Yeah. It seems like his is definitely set up for get the good bits a bit better. Because that's any core unit, right?
Yeah, or score.
Yeah. And also maybe Green Tide, right? Like he can kind of like split his forces up a little more to be like, here's 10 here, here's 10 here. I don't know. I'd have to watch him
I
play
don't
it.
think that
See what he
secondary
takes.
is good. Unfortunately, orks are. I could totally be wrong, but I think orks are gonna have a hard time getting things in the battlefield supremacy category that aren't maybe engage.
We're behind.
Behind, yeah. If I go super aggro, I still don't like behind enemy lines.
Yeah. We should try it. All
Maybe.
right. So yeah. Well, that was awesome. Any other thoughts on this wacky orc list?
It's cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see. Yeah, Nick says it is reasonable mortal output too. A decent amount of that comes from the I was forgetting he has the what are the stupid knobs
Smasher
called?
squigs.
Yeah, those are pretty good. I've been thinking about them. But again, it gives up easy assassinate, so a lot of pros and cons.
Yeah. Also
Um,
AP1 in melee. Big
you
set.
mostly just do it for the mortals.
Yeah.
Fred says, can his orc list get into a position to max secondaries unless the opponent goes on his side of the board? Can his orc list get into a position to max secondaries unless the opponent goes on his side of the board? I think that's kind of the idea, is that this list can take the biggest and the best and get the good bits, and then I don't know.
Don't you have to go fight him to get the biggest and the best though?
If you sit behind a wall on your side of the board with a character, you can get 10 points.
Because
Being on a
controlling an
midfield
objective.
Yep. So at the very worst, it's just slightly better than Rod.
Okay.
I think most people are expecting like an 8 on their Rod, hoping for a 12. And if the orc player does nothing with Gazgul, and both people just sit there staring at each other, the orc guy gets a 10 on the biggest and the best.
Okay.
It's kind of cool. Yeah, this list has a better time playing passively. It has a better time screening. I think it has I would think, I guess, having not played against it or seen it played, it's going to have a little bit of a harder time when asked to do a lot of damage very quickly and answer pressure.
All right.
All right.
Chaos Knight time?
Yeah, just for a few minutes. Chaos Knights are pretty fun. I've played one game into them, into Guard with them, and I've got another one, Death Guard, today. Let's see. We had some Chaos Knights questions. There are a lot of people trying Infernal out, which are more of a shooting-oriented Knights build. I like that. It can do a lot of damage. The issue I see with it is if your opponent survives the initial punch, because your knights are not particularly durable and they deal mortals to themselves in order to get juiced up. If your first couple punches whiff a little bit, then you're out of gas really fast and you start losing models.
Yeah.
And knights, excuse me, knights really do not like losing models. They like having things all over the place to do actions, to do damage, to tag things, to run interference. And if you lose a decent chunk of your army because you inflicted 12 d3 mortals on it in the first turn, I'm not a big fan of that. But others might have some success with that, but it's just not my cup of tea. Iconoclast is really where I want to be. +1 attack and +1 AP on the charge is amazing. It's just a matter of which of the various Iconoclast households is worthwhile. I'm going with
Not
Herpetrax. I'm going with Herpetrax just because it's cool. I don't know. They could totally not be the best, and the math says that once you start getting bracketed, Prideful Wrath is just better because
What's Prideful Wrath?
you double the number of wounds for bracketing purposes. So once you go under half strength, you're basically +1 to hit, is what that equates to, like 90% of the time. That's
Seems
pretty good.
Sixes
Um,
explode also seems really good.
yes,
It's the
yes,
math
Sixes
worse on that
Explode
one though.
also pretty good. There's not a lot of rerolls in Melee unless you take a big knight, so you're just basically +1 to hit at that point, which is still pretty good. The reason I like Herpetrax is because I've always played armies that do a lot of damage in melee and then die really fast. And I'm going to try a more midfield lockdown control style of play where I have my models stick around for longer, even if they don't do as much damage or, um, as efficiently, doing damage in the sense of Frenzied Invaders for 6 explode or Prideful Wrath for I'm a little bit more efficient when I'm wounded. I would
Mhm.
just rather have more wounds. Herpetrax, Baby Knights stay on their top bracket for 2 more wounds, and they just when you take 13 War Dogs, you have 26 more wounds, and
Pretty good.
26 wounds is basically 2 armigers. So I really like Herpetrax. I'm gonna keep playing them because I fully admit that I only have like 3 or maybe I think it's 3 games with Chaos Knights. I've done a lot of thinking about them, but I have not played very much. So I want to
Yeah.
play more games and see how they feel. But they're fun. They're really cool. The amount of stuff you can do with Dread, having a more flexible army ability than WoG is really cool. You can really mess with some people with Dread. I've just been kind of theory crafting about my game against Death Guard tonight. Ryan told me, don't worry about your minus to charge, you're having charge shenanigans because Death Guard ignore that. And I'm like, okay, I'll just pivot to the other side of the table and reduce your aura ranges by 3. And I feel like that's going to be really challenging for Death Guard to deal with, given that they rely so heavily on a 6-inch aura of you don't count as charging. So yeah, I'm excited for our game. I'm gonna see if I can do some shenanigans and pull it out.
I know that people were really excited about Chaos Knights. Yeah, and this is actually has to do with this topic. People were really excited about Chaos Knights before Nephilim. Like they just come out at the end of Nachman. And people are like, all right, do we like run 13 dogs, 14 dogs, like 2 bigs and like 7 dogs, And people were like, their secondaries are crazy strong. And then I know we were waiting kind of with bated breath, like, how are the secondaries going to change in Nephilim? And they didn't really change that much at all, right?
Sorry, say it one more time.
The Chaos Knight secondaries, they didn't really change much in Nephilim, right?
Not all that much. I to be honest, have not read the fine print to make sure that it's exactly carbon copies of what's in the codex.
Hmm.
But Ruthless Tyranny is still ridiculous. Chaos Knights basically still have Stranglehold.
Yeah, that one
Um,
is unchanged as far as I know.
yep. And then I think they might have changed Storm of Darkness, which was the other
They
one that was
changed the
very
action
solid.
one.
Yeah,
Well, they
because I
changed it
think
because
even
it used to say
the
end of the
morale
morale
phase,
phase, and
and
now
now
it's
it's
end
your
of
morale phase.
yours, which is what
Still
some people
solid.
figured was gonna be the change anyways. But
It's still very solid. What that does when you play a pressure list is basically you can say, you have to now deal with my knight that's out of the way and doing an action. My carnivore that's sitting in a forest on this back objective, shoot it to death, or I'm gonna get 3 points. And that uh or you could even do that on a stalker because it can sit back and be really tanky.
something as well too. I know some people like to do the 14 babies with like minimal upgrades, but you like to do the 13 with a few vows. So you could do like that one vow, like the trans hitman vow guy, and have him do the action. It's like shoot this guy that trans hitman, no rerolls.
I like messing with my opponent's mental game of like how are you going to deal. There's a couple of these knights that are doing a little bit more damage than average into you, or are playing the game in a particular like there. I just have one carnivore with Mark of the Dread Knight. That's 15 points for a 6 that feel no pain. So when the opponent rolls up to the table and says, "I could shoot at this knight," which doesn't have a feel no pain, and it's just a basic carnivore, or I could shoot at this other basic carnivore that has a 6 that feel no pain. Who wants to shoot at the 6 that feel no pain one? Nobody, especially when it has 2 more wounds because it's Herpetrax. Okay, now that carnivore blitzed up and killed your screening unit. And now it's got a 5 that feel no pain. And it's 20 inches forward. Now you have to deal with it, and it is a 5 that feel no pain, and it's going to be a pain in the ass. I think and I have a couple different upgrades like that. I have Mark of the Dread Knight on my guy with the Helm of Dogs. You can burst him down. He's a baby knight. That's totally fine. You can just muscle through the fact that he's no rerolls to hit or wound, but it's going to be a pain in the ass because he's going to be not on the front ranks. And if you put all your damage into him, you're getting smacked upside the head by 5 carnivores on them. So I really like the upgrades. They really
Mhm.
mess with your opponent's like head math of how do I deal with all the stuff that's rushing me down while denying him points and his efficiencies? And oftentimes your opponent makes the wrong call, and you can exploit that.
Awesome. Yeah. It sounds pretty tricky. Sounds like annoying to remember all the
Contagions are
different
not
profiles.
auras. Isn't the foul blight spawns thing is not an contagion, isn't it? Isn't that actually an aura, Ryan? I could be wrong. We'll have to look at that.
Let's
Um,
let's answer some other questions. Let's answer
let's
Terry's
see.
question here.
Terry, for Chaos Knights, what's your go-to route for Harbinger of Dread? I assume it's matchup dependent. It is. Generally, I mean, the first turn is decided. The second turn, I almost always go the Geist Storm. So pass a dread check, or you can only shoot the closest / your halved charges when you declare the Chaos Knights. Excuse me. Um, that's really good. And then on turn 3, it really depends. If my opponent's really shooting heavy, I'll obviously stick in darkness and go with -1 to hit past 12 inches. So now the opponent, if they have a lot of guns, is if you're within 12, you are if you're within 12, you have to pass a dread check or you only shoot the closest. And if you're outside of 12, you're -1 to hit. So that can be a really challenging set of defensive buffs for a lot of armies to overcome. Especially because you don't really want to be close to Chaos Knights. So you're basically going to be -1 to hit. Otherwise, I'm going to punch you the next turn. So that's basically what that says. And then in turn 4, I mean, obviously, if they have a lot of melee, I'll go with the -1 to hit in melee. Otherwise, I'll just stick with whatever the middle one is. I kind of forget. I think it's like extra morale casualties. And then the last turn, it's decided you just go with the extra combat attrition stuff. So yeah, it really just depends on the matchup, but generally I follow the standard path.
And Terry had that question earlier
About
about
fitting
fitting
challenge.
challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let me find that and pull it up. I haven't played with a fitting challenge. It can be pretty useful against aggressive armies if you're going to guaranteed kill your opponent's expensive stuff in melee. I think that's I haven't actually read the fine print on that secondary. I think it's just kill your most opponent's most expensive units in melee. But yeah, I think that could be really good against something like orks or blood angels, where you're gonna wipe out their sanguinary guard or meganobs in the first couple turns. Um, yeah, it's good as long as there's not another reliable one, and I think that is the same category as like Bring It Down. So if your opponent gives up Bring It Down and Vetting Challenge is viable, I would still go with Bring It Down.
It's purge the enemy.
Yeah, so I just
Assassinates the same way too. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then we got DZ's question here.
Flip side, what causes you the most problems? Opponents focusing down the little ones or going all in to take out the big one? I think I think knights have the it's let's see, how do I put this? Knights have a bad time when you remove resources from them because they only have like 12 units in their army. So if you open your first couple turns with each of those taking out like 3 or 4 baby knights, all of a sudden they're running out of things to do actions with, running out of things to screen with, to stand on objectives with reliably. Because if they just have like a 4 wound knight that sits on an objective, your opponent can just kill that because it's not behind a wall or anything like that. So removing resources from knights, in my opinion, is the best way to play against them. So I would personally, in my albeit limited experience, be most scared of my opponent focusing down the like 10 or 8, 9, or 10 knights, baby knights in my army that don't have any upgrades. Just because those guys are raw dog and a 5-up invul and hoping that does enough. All right. We'll close out here in a couple minutes. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them. This was a ton of fun, Nick. Did you have fun with today's episode?
Yeah, it feels kind of fun to just like sit down and break down these thoughts that have been, swirling around our head. I know like we've been pretty busy this week with like me starting work back up again, and I mean your work kind of increasing in
Yep.
workload again. So it's been cool to have this ability to sit down and chat, and chat with everyone else out there as well.
Yeah, we have a
So
lot of cool people that come watch our show every week, and it was always kind of a bummer for me that we didn't interact more with you guys. So I had a ton of fun talking about our various armies and just how we're seeing the game in this Nephilim world.
yeah.
But I think with that in mind, anything else you want to say?
No, it's a fun to exciting world. I think you mentioned a few tournaments. I think we're currently planning on if there's a GT at I guess it was previously Dark Tower, now known as Aegis Games. I think I saw that announcement yesterday. It's the hobby shop up in Bellingham.
Mhm.
They originally were planning on holding a GT at the end of this month, so I heard that they might be shifted to like maybe beginning of August or maybe still happening. I hope it happens. I really want to go to a GT this month, and if that one's happening, then I'm definitely going to go. And if anyone's in the Washington area, you should take a look at that one as well. Head on up.
Yeah, the guys at previously Dark Tower and now I guess Aegis are really, really cool. And they just had a kind of a shift up in management with there was some turmoil at the store. Not getting too much into that, but there was some changing of hands of who was owning the store and who was doing what. So we definitely want to go up there and support the Stigers or
And
Stigers, I don't know how you pronounce that, and Noah as well, and all those guys up there. They're really cool. They run a great store, and I'm excited to play some 40K with them in a couple weeks. So yeah, if you're around in the Northwest in early August, I think it's August 6th,
is that
whatever
when?
weekend that is, where there's going to be a GT at Aegis Games in Bellingham, Washington.
Okay, but date subject to change, so pay attention.
I think they locked that in.
They locked that in. Okay, great. And then we have our own little like RTT we're doing at the end of this month.
Yep, that camera, baby.
We have a friend who has a nice large deck, and he started running his own tournaments last year during the summer. So we'll have like a little one to test some stuff out, which will be fun. And then there's talk of maybe like a GT in Olympia. So it looks like a nice little summer to kind of test some stuff out and get ready for hopefully like a major in October or something.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
All right, y'all. Thanks for watching our show. We had a ton of fun talking with you guys about the things we're considering in this Nephilim meta, and we hope you guys had fun as well. But until next week, I have been Lucas.
I've been Nick.
And we are the next generation, and we will see you guys next week. Take care, everyone.